If anybody has any prayer requests, put it in the comment section and I'll pray over it. This message is titled, Who Was Pilate? Pilate was the governor of Judea from AD 26 or 27 to AD 36 or 37. Herod had been appointed king of Israel, but because Herod had failed to keep the peace, Caesar appointed an officer with a higher position than Herod. Pilate was one of these officers. Pilate was appointed governor by Tiberius Caesar. Josephus wrote that Pilate offended the Jews by moving imperial standards with the image of Caesar into Jerusalem. A crowd surrounded Pilate's house for 5 days, and Pilate summoned them to an arena where the Roman soldiers drew their swords, but because the Jews didn't show fear of death, Pilate removed the standards. Phileo wrote that Pilate offended the Jews by bringing golden shields into Jerusalem and placing them on Herod's palace. Herod the Great's sons petitioned him to remove the shields, but he refused. Herod's sons then threatened to petition the emperor, and Pilate feared this would expose the crimes he had committed as governor. But he did not stop the petition. Tiberius was upset when he heard what Pilate had done and ordered him to remove the shields. Josephus also wrote that Pilate stole money from the temple to pay for a new source of water supply to Jerusalem. A mob formed while Pilate was visiting Jerusalem. Pilate ordered his troops to beat them with clubs and have horses trample on them. Many died before the mob dispersed. Incidents like this, as well as his excessive taxation of the Jews, resulted in many rebellions. Also, Herod and Pilate didn't get along because of Pilate being in a position over Herod and his execution of the people who were in Herod's jurisdiction, as well as the incident with the shields that I mentioned earlier. They made peace after the trial of Jesus. Pilate originally wanted to arrest Jesus, but it was Caiaphas who had Jesus arrested. And by that time, Pilate had changed his mind because of a note his wife had sent him warning of a dream she had had. Some say Pilate's wife was the same woman who had an issue of blood and touched the hem of Jesus' garment, but I can neither verify nor deny this. Pilate tried everything he could think of to keep from crucifying Jesus. He tried not to be involved by telling the priests to judge him according to their law, by sending him to Herod, by drawing attention to Barabbas, who was a thief and murderer he hoped they would execute instead of Jesus. by having Jesus flogged severely, hoping it would satisfy them. By washing his hands and telling them his blood would be on their hands. At one point, Pilate said to Jesus, "Do you not realize I have the power to release you or to crucify you?" John chapter 19. Starting at verse 10. Then says Pilate unto him, "Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee, and have the power to release thee?" Jesus answered, "Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore, he that delivers me unto thee has the greater sin." Notice, right here, Jesus was telling Pilate he had to do it. It was God's will for it to happen. He would not even have power to do it had God not allowed it. To refresh your memory on something I said during the message on Judas and the message on Caiaphas. Judas was backing out on betraying Jesus. But Jesus told Judas, he said, "Wherefore art thou come?" In other words, do what you come here to do. Caiaphas, he arrested Jesus because God told him to do it. And here, Pilate saying, "Do you not realize that I have the power to release you and crucify you?" And Jesus is telling him, he only has that power because God allowed it. John chapter 10. Starting in verse 17. "Therefore does my Father love me, because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. This commandment have I received of my Father." So no one really killed Jesus, but he laid his life down for our sins. Matthew chapter 26. Starting in verse 52. This is after Peter cut a soldier's ear off. "Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again thy sword into his place. For all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the Scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be? And that same hour said Jesus to the multitude, Are ye come out as against a thief with swords and staves, for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and you laid no hold on me. But all this was done that the Scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. Think about that. He could have called 12 legions of angels to rescue him, but he didn't do it. He could have come down from the cross, but he didn't do it. Why? Because had he not died on the cross, our sins could not be forgiven. Pilate was appointed governor to keep the peace. And he feared there would be a riot, no matter what he did. Pilate gave orders for Jesus to be crucified. Above Jesus' head, Pilate wrote a sign that was supposed to specify charges. But this sign said in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, "This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." John chapter 19, verse 19. Well, the pages are wanting to stick together. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city. It was near the city, other words. And it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. Then said the chief priest of the Jews to Pilate, "Write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am the King of the Jews." Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." Think about that. Even Pilate was calling Jesus a king. And they told him to take it down. Pilate's like, "I'm not going to take his title down." That's the way we should be. There will come a time when people will try to get us to denounce Jesus. And we've got to stand firm to the faith when that time comes. The chief priest asked Pilate to secure the tomb, believing that his disciples would steal the body. Pilate sent 20 guards to the tomb and had the tomb sealed with iron spikes. After Jesus arose, the chief priest bribed the guards to claim that Jesus' disciples stole the body while they slept. So that was the story Pilate was told. Later, Caesar Tiberius got sick and asked Pilate to bring Jesus the healer to him, not realizing Pilate had him crucified. Pilate informed him how he had had Jesus crucified. But Pilate's wife brought him a napkin that had wiped the blood from Jesus' face, and he was healed. Some say that Pilate became a Christian, but I don't know if that's true. Pilate was removed as governor for his role in the trial of Jesus, as well as killing armed Samaritans. Some say Pilate committed suicide. Some say Pilate was buried at sea and comes out every year to wash his hands of Jesus' blood. But I don't know if that's true or not. As for discoveries, they have found Pilate's stone as well as coins that he had minted, which I'll put those pictures of those in the comment section. If it be the good Lord's will, I'll be back on here Monday evening.